Hi, I'm Sean. I make things, I break things, sometimes on purpose, and sometimes a cool guitar comes out. I have a problem. The next guitar build is supposed to be a baritone, 30-inch scale. I found a source, supplies this lovely, unfinished, ready to modify, pre-fretted neck. I like it. There's just one small problem. We have traditional dots on the side of the neck, but the face, the fretboard, is completely plain. This will not do. Traditional neck has our boring dot inlays. You've probably seen hundreds of other styles of bars, double lightning strikes, scrolly patterns, you name it. Lots of ways people decorate these things. And the material is inlaid into the wood a little bit and then sanded down or just set in there flush, best I can get it. So we're going to take this lovely unfinished neck, and because I need to make more work for myself, we're going to try to inlay some logos, CNC cut logos into here, fill them with colored epoxy, try to buff it down and see what we can get. Let me take you back here to see one we've already started to work on. This is another old knockoff of a prototype. I tried to put a fine logo into it and another alternate logo that's really just a humbucker pickup shape. Happen to have black pigment on hand, so I used that. We're going to use something lighter color later on. Here's the challenge. Smart people do this kind of inlay work before frets go on. Because when you make a cut like this and then try to fill it in, generally you have to sand it down and make everything even again. Well, it's easier said than done when the frets are already here. You can see on this one, getting that fine detail out, I wound up sanding quite a bit and scalloping out that shape. That wasn't quite the idea. Oh, that's what this guy was bought for. Handy little detail sander, whole bunch of grits. But it's just hard to get in there and not bear too much in the middle. So it looks like this is going to be a more manual process. But there's nothing to it but to try the next step. So let's take that other neck and get going with her. think I need to run that again 2/10 deeper maybe. Let's see. Two-tenths of a millimeter, re-zero the depth. And send it again. So there was a bit of tear out in that cut. It also was a bit shallow, a bit off center. But for the tear out, what I'm going to try to do is epoxy seal some of these areas and see if I can get the wood on the surface to stick together better when I go to cut it. The problem with that is if I epoxy seal one fret pad, then have a consistent finish, I have to go do them all. And then I have to worry about, is it going to come out smooth? Do I have to sand it again? It's just another complication. But we're going to go with this and make another for test for now and see if that little fray doesn't just sand down after I put the epoxy in and sand all that down. Alright, we're back out in the shop. I have everything masked off as tight as I can get it. No need to put epoxy everywhere. For epoxy, I'm going with the good stuff here. This is Total Boat penetrating epoxy, relatively low viscosity. Should get into these details really well. One catch to the low viscosity, because this is a round surface. Ultimately, I need the epoxy to be higher in the middle than around the outside. The other stuff I used was really thick, and it was really easy to get it to mound up really high, but then I had to sand all that down, and that was part of the problem, things getting out of shape over there. So I've already mixed up a small amount, which is way more than enough. The pigment, I don't have a good guideline on how much to use, so we're just going to put in some. Oh, this work mat, puppy pads. Cheap, great to have around the shop. Really good for the sticky jobs. I don't know, enough, too much? This is only about 3/4 ounce of epoxy. Alright, looks like that's going to be enough to give us this nice translucent pearl effect. I want to lay this in here as minimally as possible. All right. Bridged it. Okay. I think it's going to work. Okay, dig it. Now, for the fine letters, let's see how precisely I can lay this down. You know, I said I was going to test stopping tear out by putting some epoxy on some of these uncut pads. But now that I've put the colorant in here, I'm going to use this to make a little more. Okay, there it is. Actually, I can see a few bubbles, but that's not a concern. That's all going to get sanded off, I believe. All right. All right. We want to seal these two. Let's see what they look like. Actually, I'm going to do 4 spots and compare. One that's going to be, or 2 that are going to be embossed, 2 that are not. Okay. I'm actually going to wipe off most of this. Just want to let it penetrate a bit. Well, much penetration work. Let's see if we can get a closer look. There's the two spots I just sealed compared to the raw wood. Two more sealed spots. The little logo. Another little logo. Alright. Time to turn up the heat, let that cure, and poke at it probably tomorrow. Now, it's the next morning. Been about 20 hours since this got laid up. Let's have a look. We had a little accelerated curing with this trusty old heater, which has done a lot of that over the years. First I like to check the leftover. That is just a little bit soft, but it wasn't in the heat. This stuff, pretty hard. I'm going to give that a few more hours to get really hard before I start trying to file and sand on it. Oh, and here's the ones we sealed. Fairly even finish. I'll buff that down a little. Okay. Start rough. looks like I want to use more of the white pigment. I definitely want to seal with epoxy all the wood before I start, because you can see kind of where epoxy got into here and where it didn't, so the finish is uneven. There's a little glitch in the program there. Look at that too. These guys look pretty solid. There's just more space for the contrast, but you can see where the wood tore out. You've got pieces of wood that didn't all clean up and trapped in the epoxy. But we're going to try cutting into these two spots which got sealed yesterday, and we'll see if they tear out something better. So it has been 4 days, and even with extra heat, the epoxy we poured in the second batch here is just not hard at all. This is the leftover, still quite gummy. The previous pour, the leftovers from that, got hard just fine. So I tried an old trick a guy at West System taught me years ago. Spread on a little bit of extra hardener when something just doesn't want to harden, and there's a chance it'll get in there and do something good for you. But that's just not happening. So I don't know what to do but try to strip this out and re-pour it. Now, I learned a long time ago, when I was doing a lot of this, probably the best way to measure small amounts of liquid is with little syringes. And I found them getting pretty cheap these days, so I got some. We're going to try to strip this out, measure the product again, make sure we get this mix just right, 2 to 1. Let's see if I can't get a good pour on this. Look at that. That's awful. We're just going to get every stabby pokey tool I got, put them on the job here. Looks like it actually would have turned out okay if it had gelled up for me. Okay. That's what we're going to go with. Now, because drawing out of the larger containers with those can be awkward, I picked up some more little mixing cups, but these have lids. So I can dispense some of each product, cap it off, save it for later. I did get really tiny syringes, so that's that. Now, if I was worried about keeping these around, which I'm not, I would also keep track of which syringe went with which product and store them under cover somewhere. Since we don't know what went wrong last time, it's going to get mixed especially well this time. There. The syringes also allow me to mix accurately a lot less product. This is what I thought the minimum that I could mix accurately was the other day, and it's 3 times as much, and it was wrong. So, and now the colorant. Shouldn't need much this time. Nothing to it but to hope and pray again. Get my heater back on. See what we get a couple days from now. All right, well, happily, after another couple days, we can say everything is nice and hard. I don't know what happened that last time. Maybe I'll go back in the video and have a look. But here's the result. Because I didn't mask things off like I will on the real deal. Got some epoxy up against the fret. That'll be hard to get out of there. Don't want to do that. But the rest of it is nice and crispy. I think it's going to file really well. All right, we're not going to call that great. The effect is certainly there. It's not really sharp, but you know, we went in there with sharp tools and picked at all the edges. It's also very white, not pearlescent like up there. So we're going to have to take control of how much of the pearl gets put in there. But anyway, I think I've learned enough that from here we can jump into the real guy. Alright, here she is. all milled up. Need to mask this up good and get the epoxy in there. The little humbucker shape here is a stronger shape than our fine line text logo here. I'm going to use a lighter amount of pearlescent pigment for this shape and add a little more when I go to do the letters. Okay, we can do more than that. More material at a time. Alright, there's that. And that. The neater I can be here, the more it pays off later. That's usually the rule when working with resin-based anything. As I used to say, we're working with progressively harder materials. There we go, just want to get that on top of all the dots. Nope, just over flush. That's beautiful. I can't try to be as neat here, but just make sure all the lines are covered. Try to avoid gross excess. That is all we need. Let's get you on in here. I think that's just about what I want. A little heavier here, it just has to sit proud, but I think in a couple days that's going to be something nice to work with. Okay, here we are. Some days later. Everything looks good, feels good. The resin hardened up nicely. So let's see if we can't sand this down nicely. So a little bit of resin over here. Okay. I went so minimal on this fill, there's hardly any depth to go. We're going to start moving to sandpaper pretty quickly. All right, don't want to scuff that up anymore. Let's get the sander out. front of the wood just a little bit. I'll recoat that with the clear epoxy. Get the finish back to even. That's all right. And how about down here? Let's get you in there and take a look. There we are. Pretty happy with that guy up here. The text, not quite as crisp as we might like. I'm not sure what the little dark bits are about. That's why I did a little extra sanding on there. But I want to top coat both of those with quick cover epoxy, cover up where I broke into the finish. And also I got to work on, I tried to dark stain the maple on the underside. It's not quite where I want to be yet. I do have lots of spare wood to practice on now. Hang on. All right. So we got the neck done, the engraving done, the fretboard finished, I should say. Let's take a look. The upper inlay with the pickup shape came out pretty sharp and bold. The text logo, not so much. If I do that again, I'll go a little deeper. But the effect is there. I went with a gloss finish on top of that. Used a spray poly, a few coats, which is on the frets also. That's not ideal to my mind. I may go buff that down a bit later. Clean up the frets, make the rest of it perfectly uniform. Again, this is going on an all black unit, so we have a black stain on the backside. Needs a little bit of touch up. Come back and do that. I need a little more clearance down here. Come back and touch that up. We're getting the headstock ready for its locking nut and the string holder. My usual shape there. Coming along. We've got another one here going the same time. Had the same prep. Now I want to get this all cleaned up, get the necks put away, because we got to move on to the anodizing. You'll get to see that soon.